All right, everybody, I am back with a brand new DC update. And I certainly did not think I was going to be in here today doing another video because I had 2 hours, 2 hours of hardcore physical therapy this morning, and I am utterly worn out. So hopefully I have the energy to get through today's video. But I had to get a video up because there's a lot of stuff that is happening with Warner Brothers, and it all matches up with things I've been talking about for the last couple of weeks, and I told people these things were coming. And part of this I talked about more than a year ago. But it looks like Warner Brothers is going to be up for sale, and it's all contingent on one thing. And we've got a few things to look at here today. So let's jump into these photos. And if you guys happen to like the video, please take a minute to hit the like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you will be notified as I have new videos go up. Let's get started. All right, first up, it has been announced that Warner Brothers will be at the Cinecon, and they have a panel that is scheduled for Tuesday, April 1st from 7:30 to 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And it says Superman will reportedly be a main focus with James Gunn and the main cast in attendance. The official trailer is speculated to drop then. And I want to make it very clear that this is the only big movie of the summer that has yet to have a full trailer released for it. Coming out in that time period in July. All the other big films have already had a full trailer and have gotten people excited. Superman has had the absolute worst marketing I have ever seen for a movie, as important as Superman has to be for Warner Brothers. And we're going to talk a little bit more about Superman here towards the end of the video and what is expected and what is going to happen with Warner Brothers if Superman doesn't do well. Also, yesterday, James Gunn posted, on the anniversary of Lobo, I can't help but think of a text I received from Jason Momoa on the morning it was announced Peter and I were the heads of DC Studios. The day Jason and I first discussed him joining the DCU as Lobo. I've loved watching Jason bring him to life and can't wait to share that with all of you. He said, it shows that Jason Momoa had texted him effing Lobo, and James Gunn said, dude, I've said you should be Lobo for years. No lie. It's funny that James Gunn is trying to take credit for that when I think everybody on the internet has been saying that for many, many, many years. For many years. It's not just about James Gunn, but he likes to make it about him, which is super hilarious. All right, so there was this article that came out from Puck that everybody was picking up on, and this goes back to something I mentioned in one of my last 2 videos about Warner Brothers giving the boot to, DeLuca and Mike DeLuca and Pam Abdy. And Jeff Snyder had posted this, and this does come from something he received. And it says, and this is from the Puck article, and we're going to talk more about the Puck article because I pulled something else out of it that we're going to be talking about here. It'll be the last photo, which is really important. It says, with all this as a backdrop, rumors flew late last week that DeLuca and Abdy were out. Asked for comment, Zaslav's spokesperson, Robert Gibbs, responded, there is no truth to that rumor. And that was it. Needless to say, the statement likely will do little to stop the rumor mill from grinding on. Zaslav has been said to be leaning towards replacing them with Safran, the co-chair and co-CEO with James Gunn on DC Studios. But simultaneously, there are rumors that Zaslav will initiate a search for new leadership. First of all, there's no reason to get rid of DeLuca and Abdy. They're the only ones with any common sense down there. And Zaslav has none. Absolutely none. And James Gunn only took the position at DC Studios because Peter Safran was there. If they pull Peter Safran to go be part of Warner Brothers, then again, James Gunn, that was one of the stipulations, is that he would work with Peter Safran. Now, I also want to point out that Peter Safran, he has been a part of all of the massive flops down there with the DCEU. And it just seems with this company that you fail upwards. It absolutely is true. But there is more to the story, and we'll talk about that, like I said, with the last screen grab that I have. Now, there were a lot of talks about the reshoots for Superman, and there is a rumor going around, and this is just a rumor. I have not been able to confirm this, but it says Superman is having reshoots because Superman is actually not in the movie that much. Now, I don't know how true this is, but that doesn't sound good if true. And this is going around. And it's funny that this is supposed to be a Superman movie, and James Gunn swears it's a Superman movie, but there are all of these other characters in this film. It sounds way overbloated. And I could see how Superman could be put in the back seat in his own film. And this movie has to focus on Superman if it wants to be successful. This is the most important superhero film Warner Brothers has ever released, and they cannot miss on this. All right, so here is the last photo, or the last screen grab I wanted to show you guys. This comes from that same article, and it says this is in regards to Superman, and also, the change up with the regime down there. It says, beyond that, it appears the pressure is on Superman to be a hit, as it's now described as having an almost incalculable importance to Warner Brothers Discovery. The report explains that there is a genuine fear Warner Brothers could go the way of 20th Century Fox, a studio scooped up by Disney, when it was no longer sustainable for it to exist on its own. According to one studio veteran, an essential element of the stock price is believing that the IP of DC is meaningful. David Zaslav bet big that they can show the world that the DC IP can have real value. Superman is the first movie that will set the tone. They have a tremendous amount riding on it. So the word around the street is that if Superman fails, Warner Brothers is going to have to sell. And they're getting ready for that. And with that said, this movie cannot make $600 million and be considered a success. It is a fact that the budget on this was around $350 million. The legal records are out there. The legal tax reports are out there for everybody to see. So for anybody to claim anything different is being completely disingenuous. Even though, James Gunn has come out and said that is not the budget. He hasn't talked about the budget, and that information is available publicly. So Gunn is the one lying. Those reports are out there. They've been passed around social media for months. And so this movie has to make over $1 billion, or right around $1 billion, for it to be a hit for Warner Brothers. And if that does not happen, Warner Brothers is going to be sold, and they're getting ready for that. And this is going to destroy DC for a very long time. And in a minute here, I'm going to talk about what they should have done. And what's crazy about this, well, let's talk about that, because there was a much easier route they could have gone. And I can't believe David Zaslav was stupid, so stupid that he would do what he did and want to change things up like this. And now Gunn is everyone who's around Gunn said he looks tired, he's exhausted. There's a lot riding on this. And this cannot be a simple, hey, it's a mediocre film or a terrible film. This film has to knock it out of the park, okay? And let's talk about what they should have done. All right, so what they should have done, and was a no-brainer for anybody who has seen the stock prices, when Zack Snyder's Justice League was released, I think it was 3 or 4 years ago? I can't even remember. Time flies. But the days leading that release, their stock rose super, super, super high. And there was a genuine interest in reviving everything for that. And then Black Adam came out, and it was the first film to start raising those ticket sales, and they announced that Superman was back, and then they pulled the rug out from underneath it. If they had stayed the course, They could have Man of Steel out for early June of this year. Man of Steel 2 would have been ready to go, and they could have been full on in production with Zack Snyder's Justice League 2 and 3 for a theatrical release, and they would have been in much better shape. In the meantime, they could have released David Ayer's Suicide Squad to theaters and on HBO Max to even get more profit. But what do they decide to do? They decide to piss off a huge portion of the fan base and go in a completely different direction. And keep in mind that James Gunn was the guy that said superheroes were the stupidest thing he's ever seen. And what's crazy about that is he talks about how when he was a kid, and I've mentioned this in a previous video, he talked about when he was a kid, superheroes were the coolest thing ever, but as he gets older, he realizes how ridiculous they are. And then at the same time, I told people, think about this. Him getting the job at the head of DC Studios in charge of DC properties after making a comment like that is the same as somebody, making a comment that, hey, when I was a kid, we used to shop at Walmart all the time. I loved Walmart. Walmart was like the thing when I was a kid. Loved going with my parents. But as an adult, I could see how it's the stupidest grocery store on the planet. And then that person ends up becoming the CEO of Walmart. That makes no business sense. That's exactly what happened with James Gunn and David Zaslav. And for anybody to say anything other than that, oh, he had some hits with Marvel. Everything he's touched for DC has turned to crap. Nobody watched Peacemaker. Nobody, especially nobody, watched Creature Commandos. And the Suicide Squad lost the studio almost $200 million. He has yet to do anything that has brought a profit to Warner Brothers. He's just not the guy to be. He should have never been put in charge in the first place. And now everything is riding on Superman. And I think this is also by design because if it fails, the only person they can blame is James Gunn. So I'm anticipating a big flop coming. I really think Superman is going to make less than $500 million worldwide. The only thing that could possibly save it is maybe some overseas ticket sales, but I don't think it's going to do well here in the U.S. at all. I'm predicting in the U.S. Probably between 200 and 300 million total, maybe, if that. Nobody's interested in a reboot at this stage. Everybody I've talked to that is not a movie person, first of all, they don't even know that a Superman movie is coming out. And this goes back to me talking about how horrible the marketing has been. And then people will come in and say, well, the trailer had 51 million views on YouTube. Yeah, because people watch that trailer time and time again to pick it apart. It wasn't that there were 51 million people that actually watched it. It's a much lower number than that. And so the general population still doesn't know that a Superman movie is even coming out. And when they see that it's not Henry Cavill, that's going to cause some problems. You saw what happened with Captain America, the recent movie, because it's not Chris Evans. People are not interested. They're just not. And that's the issue. There was no reason to get rid of Henry Cavill. The best thing they could have done was maybe gone in a different direction if they felt like that was necessary. But you keep the same actors. Look at what Marvel did. I mean, Daredevil was off the air for 7 years, and they just brought it back. And I'm looking forward to the new episode tonight. I'll be watching it and having a review up for that as well. All right, guys, so there you have it. Warner Brothers is in a very bad position right now, and they've got nobody to blame but themselves. But them thinking they're going to get rid of the best people down there at Warner Brothers is the stupidest thing you could possibly do. But that's what they're entertaining, getting rid of Pam Abdi and Mike DeLuca. All right, guys, we will see you on the next video.